Hey guys, what is up? It's me, Amelia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming my May wrap-up, which is my birthday month. I turned 20. I'm a Taurus. If my shirt looks a bit blue, it's because I dyed my hair this morning, so it like dripped onto my shirt. In May, I read 8 books. So the first book that I read was Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. After waiting like almost 2 years, Sarah J. Maas finally came out with another book. Crescent City, to put it simply, it's basically about this girl named Bryce Quinlan. She's half fae, half human, and she's tasked with finding this kind of artifact, which is a horn, or the horn. And for this, she's partnered up with Hunt Athalar, who is an angel, and they're just working together to find this object. And that's basically what it's about. I really enjoyed Crescent City, but I feel like the pacing was a little bit off. It took me quite a few hundred pages to finally be invested in the book and the characters, but after a couple hundred pages, I started really getting into the story and really enjoying the romance, the plot, and everything. I feel like the world is very complex. There's a lot of different creatures or beings, like angels, fae, werewolf, humans, mermaids. It's full of different creatures, which I really love. I love a world where there's different beings, so I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. The world is very complex, so it took a while to really understand it, but I do think the world building was done really well. I love this book a lot, and I really love Adis, who is one of the characters, and I cannot wait for the second book so we can see more of him. If you want to read like a complex urban fantasy story with romance, then I would recommend this book. I gave it a 5 stars, but it does take a while to really get into it. Next up, I read In Fury Lies Mischief by Emma Jones, which is the second book in the Midnight Mayhem series. It's kind of a dark romance that's kind of set in sort of a circus. There's a group, like a troupe of performers who go around different countries performing like dancing or performing tricks, and it follows one of the dancers in the troupe and a guy in the troupe and just their romance. And it's very dark and a lot of trigger warnings, like rape. I think just rape. But I mean, Emma Jones is a very dark writer, so if you're very sensitive to some things, maybe don't read it. But if you love like dark romance, it's pretty dark, then I would recommend this book. But also, I think I would only recommend the first book in the series, which follows a different girl and a different guy in the troupe, because I feel like the plot seemed very reused. While reading the second book, I was like, this feels exactly like I'm reading the first book, just a different set of characters. So maybe I would say read the first one. The second one was good. Like, I enjoyed the romance, I enjoyed the plot, I gave it 4 stars, but it's so similar to the first book, so just read the first book, I would say. Next up, I read The Hunter by LJ Shen, which I actually made a rant review for, so you can check that out. The Hunter is the first book in the Boston Bells series. It's basically about this guy. He had his sex tape leaked, and it was with like a few other girls. It was like an orgy, and his dad got pretty mad, so Hunter has to hire this girl named Sailor to live with him in his apartment and just kind of make sure he stays celibate, doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't have sex or anything. And as you guessed, it's a romance, so obviously they're gonna fall in love. I would not recommend this book, obviously, because I made a rant review for it. I feel like LJ Shen is a very strong writer. She writes romance very well, but with this book, I feel like it lost the LJ Shen spark. I didn't like it at all. I just think the romance wasn't done well. It wasn't believable. And the hero was just very disgusting. I didn't like him at all. I liked him in her other series because he was in a different series too, but this one, like... So if you're looking to read a new adult romance, I would recommend LJ Shen's other books, like the Sinners of Saint series or the All Saints High series, but definitely not this one. Next up, and I really love this book. I'm actually gonna be filming a review for it later, but it's The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, which I was so excited for, and it's based on President Snow and kind of how he became a villain over time, because he was a villain in the Hunger Games, and it just kind of shows his teenage years and his journey, and I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people were upset that, oh my gosh, why is she writing a book on Snow when there are so many other people she could write it on? Is she trying to redeem Snow? And it's not that at all. The author definitely was not trying to redeem him. at all. In fact, like, we don't even like him. It does show how he became the way that he is right now, and I just loved it. I feel like it was genius. This book was so genius, and there were like little hints to the Hunger Games series, and I was like, yes, like, I know this. It was just amazing. I'll be putting a review for that out later if you wanna see it. I gave that book 5 stars, of course. Next up, I read Deviant King and Steel Princess by Rena Kent. Deviant King is actually the first book in the series, and then Steel Princess is the 4th book. I skipped book 2 and 3, I know. Deviant King follows this girl. She moves to London and starts school at this very elite, high-class school, and there's just this guy named Aiden King who's very mean to her and bullies her, and she doesn't really understand why he's doing that. So, you know, it's your typical hate to love romance. I can't get enough of those. I actually really like this book. I like the romance, I like the plotline. I gave this book a 4 stars. I took down 1 star because there was, well, I'll put a trigger warning, sexual assault. I mean, it's fine for sexual assault to be in a book, but the way it was put, which I won't explain because I don't want to spoil it, but that bothered me. And then Steel Princess, the 4th book, is set on another girl, which is the best friend of the girl in Deviant King, the 1st book, and kind of her relationship with another guy that kind of bullies her. So, you know, another hate to love romance. Okay, it's actually called Black Knight, not Steel Princess. Steel Princess is the 2nd book. The one I read, the 2nd one, is Black Knight, which is number 4. I gave Black Knight 5 stars, but a lot of trigger warnings like self-harm, suicide. I really loved the chemistry between the 2 characters, and I feel like the sensitive topics portrayed in this book was very, very real, like self-harm, suicide. I just think the author explored these topics really well, and for that I really appreciate that. Next up, I read From Blood and Ashes by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and it's so weird because I heard about this from various Facebook book groups. Everyone was talking about it, and it's weird because I didn't see it on book Twitter at all. No one on book Twitter talked about it, and that's usually where I get recommendations, but it was all over Facebook, not even on book Twitter. But because it was in so many groups, I decided to read it, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a new adult fantasy, and it's about this girl. She's the maiden, so she always has to wear a veil and like stay pure, and she lives in the palace. And because she's kind of this pure maiden, no one's allowed to look at her, no one's allowed to talk to her, so she lives a very sheltered life. Only her guard and her best friend actually knows what she looks like because she has to walk around the palace with a veil, and she's just waiting for her ascension, where she'll ascend and become immortal. There's this guard named Hawk. I love Hawk, and he just has to protect her because there's some evil forces that are in the palace. Is just very dangerous, and the romance was really good. I love this book. 5 stars. Perfect chemistry. I love the ending, which I saw coming, but it was done really well, and I love it. It was just perfect, and I can't wait for the next book, and we get the release date for the next book at the end of this month, and I'm so excited. The last book that I read in May is The Score, which is the 3rd book in the Off-Campus series. Every book in that series follows a different guy in the hockey team in the Briar U University. It's a new adult college sports romance. It follows this girl named Allie Hayes, and she just broke up with her very long-term boyfriend. She meets Dean De Laurentiis. She just wanted like rebound sex, and it was supposed to be like just sex to like rebound and get over her ex, but you know, it's a romance, so some feelings get involved. I gave this book a 4 stars. I liked the romance, and I liked kind of their banter, but it wasn't the best. I did like the 1st book in the series a lot more, and also her spin-off series, Briar U. I feel like I like those books a little bit better, but I still would recommend this book. It just wasn't the best. So those were all the books that I read in May of 2020. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read any of these books and liked them, or if you didn't like them. That's okay too, because I didn't like some of them too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!